Let's talk about hexatonic scales. Hexatonic scales are 6-note scales. Hexatonic scales can be used to create voicings, improvise, or for composing and arranging. In this talk, we'll mainly focus on improvisation, and we're going to work at arriving at these scales, or the scale type, in 3 different ways. So this video will help increase variety into your lines and manage some musical issues that may arise too. Before we get started, please hit the like button, subscribe, and leave a comment. All of this helps to support content like this into the future. All right, well, let's get started. I mentioned at the beginning that we're going to construct these from 3 different angles. We'll start out with pentatonic scale, adding 1 tone to that. So let's say we have the A minor pentatonic. Okay, we're in this position. Maybe we'll go all the way up. Maybe we're thinking about A minor 7, and maybe the next chord is D9. Notice that D9 is going to have this note on string 4, fret 4, that's an F sharp. We'll add that tone to the pentatonic scale and we'll end up with the hexatonic type scale. Okay, and we can keep going. As you're improvising, you can introduce some voice leading while still maintaining a lot of that pentatonic type language. Something like that, for example. Okay, what if we have a G major type chord, let's say G6. And then we improvise with G major pentatonic. And then of course we could keep going. Let's add the same note we added before, that F sharp. So this will give us a little resolution into that G. So those are a couple of examples. But if you're really familiar with pentatonics, work with adding a tone between the larger intervals in the pentatonic scale. So for example, back to the A minor pentatonic example, we added a tone between the minor third here, between E and G. So then you may also work with having a tone between the A and the C. And then back to G, major pentatonic. We added a tone between the E and the G. So another minor third interval there. We can also add a tone in between the third and the fifth of that chord, B and D. In any of these cases, you're adding a level of dissonance and a tendency to create some motion or some voice leading. So experiment with the various combinations that you could come up with. You can actually find a lot of scale types within just the pentatonic and adding a tone in between those larger intervals. Pentatonics are something that most guitarists are pretty strong with. We also tend to know triads pretty well, especially if we've been playing chords. So think of the most basic types of chords like G major, or A minor. We may also include triads that are diminished or augmented. But what we're going to tend to do is split those up for single line use. So G major for example, or A minor. So we can arrive at hexatonic scales by selecting two triads with no notes in common. So the G and the A minor are good examples of this. So then we get something like this if we play those stepwise. But breaking it up into triads is a really nice effect. The sound is really recognizable to the listener. So utilizing these larger intervals like perfect fourth, minor third, major third, and then weaving back and forth between that and G, which also will have perfect fourth intervals, minor thirds, and major thirds, can add variety to the contour of your lines. Another interesting effect of this is that if you play or limit yourself to 3 notes or 3 attacks on a certain triad, you get this kind of wraparound off-kilter effect. So if we play 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, then we're beginning every other triad on the and of some beat and the other triad on the beat. So that's a really nice technique for adding what feels like some rhythmic variety, and you can use accenting along with that to create tension in your lines. We talked about adding a tone to the pentatonic to arrive at a hexatonic. We talked about taking 2 triads and combining them to create a hexatonic scale. Now let's talk about omitting a tone from 7-note scales, which are the typical scales that we all study, major scales and so on. You may have heard of or used the concept of rootless voicings. We can use that concept in a way for our melodic content or the pull of notes that we're working with. So let's say we have a D minor 7 chord, and the bass player is playing D, and we're thinking, let's say D Dorian. Well, if we play every note except for D, we end up with this. You can start and end on any note, but there I'm starting on the E. So there we're omitting a note on purpose in order to have our single notes harmonize with that low D in the bass. And you can do this with any chord type. So in that case, we avoided a tone that is consonant. We can also use the same technique to avoid a tone that is dissonant. So let's take C major 7. And let's say we're considering C Ionian. The 4th tone of that scale is dissonant on the C major 7, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. You could end a phrase on this or start a phrase on that tone in order to create tension, or give an opportunity to start and end another phrase on what would resolve from that. But for our purposes here with the hexatonic scale, this is what we're considering. So we've omitted one tone from 7-note scale and ended up with the hexatonic scale. See if you can create your own hexatonic scale with one or all of these different methods. Pentatonics, adding one tone between the larger steps, taking two triads that are either separated with the root note by a whole step or a half step and have 3 unique notes each, or working with a variety of scales and omitting one of the tones. Remember, when it comes to pentatonics, you can also use the dominant pentatonic or alterations of these. Triads work with diminished, minor, major, augmented, and 7-note scales, major scale, harmonic major, melodic minor, and harmonic minor. Through exploring this, you'll also likely happen upon the whole tone scale, the augmented scale, and the half-step, whole-step octatonic scale. Thanks for watching. I do hope you enjoyed this video. Please check the description down below for online consultations, and those could have to do with recording, playing. We also have a member area here on the YouTube channel, and we have a brand new member site at Fretprints.com. All right, everybody. Well, enjoy your practice session, and I will see you all in the next one.